You're watching Force 13's live streaming service.
Melissa's trail of destruction set to continue. Cuba is next on tonight's live tropical weather bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical weather bulletin for October 29th. As we all know by now, Hurricane Melissa made one of the most powerful landfalls in Atlantic Basin history earlier today when it made landfall with official estimated winds of 185 miles per hour sustained and a pressure estimate of 892 millibars. The storm has weakened to a Category 4 and is now emerging off the coast of northern Jamaica. Recon are already in the storm once again. Here is a closer look at the Atlantic Ocean as a whole there on day 151 of hurricane season. Hurricane warnings have been extended, I think. Can't remember when they were extended actually, but a hurricane watch has now been posted for Bermuda. In the Eastern Pacific, it looks like Sonia has given up the ghost and is now a remnant low. Still with winds near 35 miles per hour, but it didn't perform quite to expectations over there. Of course, overshadowed massively by what happened in its neighbouring basin. In the Western Pacific, we're still examining a moderate chance of development that may materialise in the Philippine Sea in the next 5 to 7 days. This weekend might become quite interesting for it. Currently expecting a tropical storm to be moving through the Philippine Sea, heading towards the Visayas region. In the North Indian Ocean, Mantha made landfall not too far before Melissa did actually, and is now down to a tropical depression. Another area of interest nearby as well, which is still active after such a long time, and still no real signs of it actually developing yet. The southern hemisphere is now all quiet after we had those systems a few days ago, and that's pretty much how it should be at this time of year. It's still very, very early on, and yet we've already had 4 tropical storms in the southwest Indian Ocean since the new season started, or the new calendar year started in July. Also down there in the southern hemisphere, the Australian region, a little bit of convection blowing up near Darwin there, a little bit of activity also off the coast of Queensland, but in general it is looking fairly quiet, and some rainfall heading for New Zealand as well. So here's the latest on Melissa, which is still an extremely powerful Category 4 hurricane. Our estimate now is 140 mile per hour winds. Estimate of around 955 millibars based on Recon. It's gone up a hell of a lot since earlier on today. Just 39 kilometers from St. Anne's Bay, 192 from Santiago de Cuba, 248 from Guantanamo, 532 from Crooked Island in the southeastern Bahamas, and 1926 from Bermuda. The storm could pass through or very close to all of those locations, Cuba and beyond. And here's the National Hurricane Center forecast showing a similar idea, showing that the storm will remain powerful all the way through Cuba, still as a major hurricane, maybe still as a Category 4, Bahamas possibly still as a Category 3, and Bermuda maybe a Category 2 by the time it gets to you. Now it looks pretty much set in stone that Bermuda will have some kind of tropical storm or hurricane impact from the storm. It wasn't looking so clear until recently, but that's the latest from this extremely destructive storm. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you're always in touch with the latest tropical cyclone updates, as well as following us on social media. And you can also join our Discord server for tropical weather chat at any time on discord.gg/force13. So there we are with the tropical weather bulletin intro, and with the information that we've got from the National Hurricane Center at their 8 p.m. advisory, they've downgraded it further to a Category 3 at this point now, 125 mile per hour winds. They went with 952 millibars. We're a little bit higher at 955. So that's where we're at right now. This storm still a high-end Category 3 now on the Saffir Simpson Hurricane Scale, which somewhat surprises me, looking at this imagery. Still, in my opinion, looking quite good. But that is based on Recon data, which was struggling to find particularly strong winds in the storm. In fact, if anything, that Recon data for the wind is a little bit generous, and National Hurricane Center probably holding on for continuity. I certainly think that the storm has a chance of strengthening a little bit more again. We continue to watch it right now. That eye is starting to pop out again. Obviously, it's not the same eye that we were watching this morning, local time. It's going to be, the landfall has forced an eye wall replacement cycle effectively, and here we are with a brand new structure. Won't be as good as the last one, but still we're seeing signs on that satellite imagery that the eye is already starting to reappear. Water vapor imagery, the same one that we saw the landfall on for so many hours earlier on today. There it is, gradually moving away from Jamaica. Bit disappointed actually that it's not showing the outline for Jamaica on this graphic. I know he hasn't got very much time, so let's talk to Jack right now as well. You're joining us here on tonight's bulletin. Have you collected your thoughts since the gravity of this extraordinary landfall that occurred earlier today?
Well, I've only done it as much as anyone can, but I obviously waiting for these videos and pictures to come out of Jamaica.
Yeah, there's been a handful so far that I've seen of damage further. Only a few pictures of minor damages in Kingston, ripped up billboards and things like that. I think I did see one house that was destroyed along the coast somewhere, but in terms of Western Jamaica, in the areas that were hit by in the landfall zone earlier on, well, I don't think we're going to be hearing from there for a while. I do believe that I heard about one official who said that one of the towns down there, which one was it now? I think it was Treasure Beach or somewhere around there, was cut off. And you're going to hear a few stories like that some of these towns that have been near the landfall zone will have been completely cut off from the outside world for could be days.
Yeah.
I don't know how Montego Bay fared either, because the storm did drift quite quickly in towards the northeast after we saw the landfall there. So they didn't get the eye, but they got pretty close to it, and they probably got some pretty decent winds. Pretty strong winds, approaching maybe Category 5 status earlier on. I think this is as in terms of we're always talking about how these islands, when a storm makes landfall, it can weaken a storm by 1 category. Well, this has so far weakened this storm by 2 categories, and bearing in mind it wasn't just 160 mile an hour Cat 5, it was much higher than that. You could almost say it's weakened it by 3 categories. So I think that is a bit of a result there. Certainly when we're watching places further forward, it's just whether this storm might actually have a chance to re-intensify right now. Interestingly, the hurricane models aren't that keen on it. They have stabilization at best and no further intensification. So I don't know, but you look at this satellite imagery, it doesn't really fill you with encouragement, does it? It looks as though this storm is limbering up for another round. Recon NOAA 2 were in the storm earlier. I don't think they managed to get an eye drops on, which confuses me because they managed to drop for 18 others. But AF301 are also en route to the storm right now. They're late because apparently they had a bird strike just after takeoff earlier this afternoon. And now they're en route again. And they're going to hopefully find the storm during the course of this hour of coverage. And we'll let you know what they find if they manage to get there in time. But certainly looks to me as though this storm may be progressing again. In motion, it's certainly speeding up now, and that is going to be an irreversible movement. No more of this stalling business. This storm is on its way. It's being lifted out of the Caribbean Sea, and is going to be flung through Cuba, the southeastern Bahamas, and then onto Bermuda in near enough a straight line. There's that 8 p.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center showing that to that effect. And yeah, I think it could launch straight towards Bermuda at this rate, likely arriving there very late Thursday night into early hours of Friday. And he says, is it possible for it to become a Category 5 again? I doubt it, he says. And I also very much doubt it. We've put there's the chances down there at the bottom. Wait for it. If you've not seen that board yet, there you go. 2% is what we're giving it at this point for the storm to re-intensify back to Category 5 status. I think normally we'd say 0.1%, but it's Melissa, so we're giving it a 2% chance. But I would say that is obviously very unlikely. JJ, you're also with us right now. Welcome aboard. Have you had any further ruminations throughout the course of today as we've been watching this storm gradually weaken after that such a destructive, running out of superlatives there, landfall earlier on?
Yeah, I think me, along with a lot of other people, were rejoiced to see the storm finally knocked off of Category 5 status. But aside from that, it's still kind of eerie. Still really beginning to see some of the stories coming out of Jamaica. I've heard a few now. And I've seen a few images and videos of some of the devastation, and it's honestly a little tough to look at, if I'm being honest. But with everything going forward with the storm, thankfully we're on a path where the storm won't be making any more crazy runs like we were seeing throughout the beginning of this week, early throughout the weekend. And hopefully the impacts in Cuba are nowhere near what they were in Jamaica, because I don't think we're ever going to see impacts like that for a storm of that magnitude for a while.
Eye is really starting to pop out a little bit more here on these latest frames. It's now around, it's still got a long way to go, but it's still around minus 60 degrees Celsius inside the eye there. Obviously, when we consider at landfall, it was about plus 19. So it's got a way to go before it gets anywhere near back to being Category 4 range, let's say. Because it's probably still going to be on a weakening trend unless the recon aircraft gets some new data that shows strengthening again. It's going to level out at some point. It doesn't have very long. I'm not sure how long it actually has before it reaches Cuba. Look at back of that NHC cone there, and they are calling for it to be that'd be 2 a.m. That can't be right, can it? Yeah, it is. They're expecting landfall in about 6 hours' time. So it's really not a very long time. I'm not sure if it is going to be 6 hours looking at imagery. It feels like it might be a bit longer, but that's the forecast right now. Just 6 hours it's got to potentially strengthen again before landfall. So we are definitely not going to see a nightmare scenario of this storm rapidly re-strengthening to a Cat 5, because it has not got the structure for rapid intensification right now, or certainly not of the level that we saw earlier. So even if it did a large eye, half-baked structure intensification, I think the most you'd expect maybe 140 to 145 at landfall if it started right now. Obviously still pretty bad, of course. But right now, down to a Category 3, but we don't want people to take their eyes off the ball, because this is still a major hurricane. If this only peaked as a Category 3 and was still a Category 3 now, people would still be going crazy over it. So this is what we're dealing with. Category 3 hurricanes can be very destructive still. And of course, the similar risk factors remain for Cuba as it did for Jamaica, where we're expecting serious flash flooding concerns, landslides. And by the way, the southern eye wall just moving offshore, obviously, but the banding on the southern side there as well, producing a lot of rainfall over the mountains of northern Jamaica predominantly now, but still some parts of the south as well. Still looking at very high amounts of rainfall entirely over that area. Let's see what else we've got right now. How strong will it be when it landfalls on Cuba? Well, that is the question. We may be looking at a Category 4 at landfall again, but remains to be seen. And do we think that November will bring any more surprises for the Atlantic? I'm a bit worried to go on record to say anything at this point, but I get the feeling that we're not going to see anything huge. There could still be a hurricane or two that won't get to major hurricane status. We saw yesterday, or maybe the other day, the GFS had gotten keen with with another Caribbean storm that actually hit Jamaica as a tropical storm, and then moved into the Gulf of Mexico via the Yucatan Peninsula as a hurricane. That was on the GFS yesterday. And let me give you a little hint as to what might be on the GFS today before we look at the proper models. I can tell you it's gone. So I wouldn't be getting worried about that. This might be it for the Atlantic this season, but it's far too early to say whether that's true. And I think that's all the questions at the moment, but feel free to start your message with Force 13 all in text, and we can take some more questions, because I imagine there's going to be a fair bit of discussion through this live stream tonight as well. Jack, JJ, I'm just throwing it open floor really at the moment. I guess, do you think it's going to have a fair bit of intensification here in this small window that it's got?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
I mean, the conditions are there for it. As long as the storm can really get itself together, not going to be much stopping it again. But hopefully, with the fact that the storm is still rebounding, that's its only limitation.
That's the thing, though. I'm looking at the hurricane models, HAFS, etc. I don't think any of them are having... Ooh, actually... HWRF has something interesting. They're all initializing the storm way too strong, though, by the way.
Having a whale of a time with it.
They're all initializing the storm way too strong. By the way, the HAFSA model, going back in time, had the storm at 874 millibars before landfall.
Oh my lord.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I've been having a whale of a time.
Ridiculous.
That's one way of putting it. So only the HWRF has any kind of storm holding its intensity. All the other hurricane models have it weakening a little bit before reaching Cuba. So the next recon date will be pretty key to see what the direction of travel is right now. We had one pass earlier into the 950s, and that, by the way, must be one of the quickest jumps in pressure ever recorded, considering how strong this storm was.
Skyrocketed.
You know, we're gonna have to look at that in the record books and see if that's the biggest 6-hour pressure jump that we've ever seen, because landfall was what time? It was just before 1 o'clock, wasn't it? Eastern Daylight Time. And now at 8 o'clock, it is nearly, well, yeah, potentially over 60 millibars less intense.
Okay.
That is pretty incredible. I don't think we've seen anything like that. AF301 still inbound. They've still got a little way to go, though, so it's going to be a while before we actually hear from them properly. I don't think NHC said very much. I'll just tell you some of the things though from their earlier discussion from 5 p.m. The eye of Melissa made landfall in western Jamaica near 17Z with maximum sustained winds estimated at 185 miles per hour and a central pressure near 892 millibars. The storm weakened over the mountains of western Jamaica with the eye disappearing and some warming of the convective cloud tops. This is interesting actually. It should be noted that while Melissa's landfall intensity is among the strongest ever recorded in the Atlantic Basin, it will take extensive post-analysis to determine exactly where it ranks among landfalling Atlantic hurricanes. Now, I got a hunch that the storm was possibly not quite as strong at landfall as it was at peak when the recon planes were in there. Anything else of interest in that last discussion? No, not much. Expected to become a strong extratropical cyclone over the North Atlantic by day 4. Let's just remind everyone of the key messages right now then, because there are many. Jamaica, remain in a safe shelter tonight. Damaging winds will continue over portions of Jamaica this evening. Catastrophic flash flooding and landslides are expected across the island tonight, with widespread infrastructure damage, power and communications outages and isolated communities. Haiti and the Dominican Republic, catastrophic flash flooding and landslides expected across southwestern Haiti and southern portions of the Dominican Republic during the next day or so. In Haiti, extensive damage and isolation of communities is likely. Tropical storm conditions expected later today and Wednesday. Eastern Cuba, heavy rainfall, flash flooding and landslides expected soon. Life-threatening storm surge and damaging winds are likely to begin later today. Seek safe shelter. Southeastern and central Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands, hurricane conditions, life-threatening storm surge and heavy rainfall expected. Across portions of the southeastern and central Bahamas on Wednesday, complete preparations by tonight and follow local official guidance. Tropical storm conditions, heavy rains and significant storm surge expected in the Turks and Caicos Islands on Wednesday. And Bermuda now, hurricane conditions and heavy rainfall possible beginning Thursday or Thursday night, where a hurricane watch is now in effect. A reiteration of the watches and warnings that are currently in effect right now then. A hurricane warning, of course, still for Jamaica, the Cuban provinces of Granma, Santiago de Cuba, Guantanamo, Holguin and Las Tunas, and for the southeastern and central Bahamas, marked in red. Hurricane watch in effect for Bermuda, and tropical storm warning in effect for Haiti, Cuban province of Camagüey, and the Turks and Caicos Islands in blue. We are expecting extensive rainfall, additional 6 to 12 inches across Jamaica, where storm totals will be between 12 to 24 inches. Isolated areas near 30 inches will be possible over mountainous terrain. Ongoing catastrophic flash flooding and numerous landslides will continue through Tuesday night. For eastern Cuba, storm total rainfall of 10 to 20 inches expected through Wednesday, with local amounts of 25 expected over mountainous terrain. This will cause life-threatening and potentially catastrophic flash flooding with numerous landslides. Over the southeast Bahamas, storm total rainfall of 5 to 10 inches expected through Wednesday, which will result in areas of flash flooding. For the Turks and Caicos, rainfall totals of 1 to 3 inches expected. Heavy rain may begin to affect Bermuda Thursday night. Over southern Hispaniola, additional rainfall of 2 to 6 inches there expected, with storm total local maxima of 40 inches possible. Storm surge, still 2 to 4 feet of storm surge possible along this northern coast of Jamaica. Flooding on the southern coast should subside later tonight. Potential for significant storm surge along the southeast coast of Cuba through early Wednesday. Peak storm surge heights could reach 8 to 12 feet above the normal tide levels near and to the east of where the center of Melissa makes landfall. Large and destructive waves. Minor coastal flooding possible in bays and inlets along the north coast of eastern Cuba. Storm surge of 5 to 8 feet above normally dry ground is possible in the southeastern Bahamas on Wednesday, and 2 to 4 feet above normally dry ground in the Turks and Caicos Islands as well. Minor coastal flooding expected along the coast of Haiti. Quite a long list of impacts right there as we continue to watch this storm rematerialize, possibly looking at that satellite imagery. Is it or isn't it? It looks like the eye is starting to pop out at a fair rate, but it's only got 6 hours before it reaches the landfall in Cuba. AF301 still en route. They've not quite reached the storm yet. Just about, I think they're just about to reach the outer periphery of the storm. So we'll see what they end up doing. I think they're still going to be flying pretty far south. So be interesting to see what they do. And what do we think the peak was? From a comment there. The Persistent Puzzler, nice name. Jack, JJ, NHC is what you run with, or do you have different thoughts?
I'm running with NHC 185, 892. So I think it's
for now,
very fair.
For now, I just same as JJ, just running with the NHC for now.
Well, I'm going to be an awkward one, and
I know, yeah. This is
suggesting based on the drop sond earlier that the storm was probably 891 at peak.
Fair enough. I could give you that.
But for the winds, yeah. I think I'm quite happy with that 185 mile an hour estimate that it had at peak. So pretty much in line, even at this point. And of course, like the NHC said, it is going to be extensive post-season analysis that we're going to be seeing on this. It could take a while for that report to emerge.
Yep.
Let's load up this brand of imagery now.
I'm going to be heading out now, though.
Yeah.
I've got to go to bed.
Yep, that's fine. Thanks for joining us, Jack, and providing your thoughts here.
Yeah.
So
I hope the rest of the trip goes well.
Yeah. So it's just JJ and I now for the foreseeable. A big band on that southern side. The eye wall throwing up the highest convective tops over Jamaica still at this point. Also a couple of big flurries, or well, moderately sized flurries of convection over Cuba itself near Guantanamo, JJ. Some pulsing thunderstorms there. And sometimes it's those kinds of things that can cause, even in those outer bands, very localized, heavy rainfall areas under these relatively small thunderstorm clusters, which can cause flash flooding.
Yeah, you usually see this, especially now, especially with the storms going size. You're going to see a lot more of these outer bands, and with those outer bands, they're going to come these large cells that are just going to blow up and bring tons of heavy rain, especially with the storms increasing speed and closing proximity. There's going to be a lot more of that throughout the day tonight and into tomorrow morning. So it's one thing to keep on your mind for rainfall totals.
The question about a drop sond earlier that showed 171 knot surface winds. Well, first of all, they're gusts. You know, there's just the measurement of instantaneous winds on those drop sonds. But still, that is pretty impressive. But I think the other data that was around pretty much corroborates the 185. But it will take some analysis. This storm has been freaky. Satellite mismatch with recon data to an extent that we've never seen before, right? At least in this day and age. The difference between the satellite estimates and the recon estimates when this storm was prowling around the southern side of Jamaica, something like we've never seen before. We're going to need an explainer on that because
there's never been a discrepancy of that margin from satellite in the modern era. There's something unseen before.
But then it makes you wonder how many other storms have we relied on satellites for, because it's either too far away or it's not going to affect any land, that recon planes weren't sent there. How many other times have we had completely false estimates and gone with them because they're the only estimates there are? And what do we do about it? We want to be as accurate as possible, don't we? what do we do about an issue like that? Because there's really no other way of telling it apart from the established conventions that we have on satellite imagery that give you a good idea of how strong a storm is, but can never actually tell you just how strong, or in this case weaker than the satellite estimates, the storm actually was. And that's another thing, it's usually the other way round. Usually Recon goes in, especially in the Atlantic, and finds the storm to be stronger than what its satellite appearance suggests. Irma, one of the big ones, because it was it barely had a borderline Cat 5 appearance when they went in and they got 175 mile an hour winds. And I'm sure other situations as well, maybe Dorian, because I can't remember now. Maybe not.
I think when it was first reaching Category 5, there was a decent discrepancy between satellite estimates and Recon, I believe. Satellite was just reaching 155, and then they went in Recon and they found winds of 160 in there. But you usually see it by a small margin, nothing as grand as what Melissa's had.
Yeah. Let's see if we get some more comments right now. Melissa may make landfall very close to where Hurricane Sandy made landfall in Cuba as a 150 mile an hour storm. You are actually right, but I think it may end up just going a little bit further east. But yeah, not too far away. Marissa says, if this storm does rapidly intensify before hitting Cuba, will that make Bermuda more affected? Well, yes. It is going to have more, the more intensity it holds now, the more likely it's going to have more intensity when it gets up there. And whatever happens to the storm once it gets up towards Bermuda, if it's got more intensity to play with at the beginning, even if it has a big wind distribution where it's spread out a lot more and those winds go down, it'll still be over a much larger area. I guess that doesn't really matter so much for Bermuda because it's so small. But in general, yes, a stronger storm now will mean a stronger storm later. And a moment of lovely, one of our chat mods, welcome aboard. In their opinion, National Hurricane Center ignores Recon too many times, especially with Melissa, and reckons that it was even stronger than what the NHC went with. I don't follow, because I was looking at Recon data a lot, and NHC went with it a lot. There are question marks about how much of the conversions, what altitude the planes fly at, how they, because we're using more inexact science there as well, using more rule of thumb techniques rather than actual in the moment techniques to do wind conversions when we're talking about the planes that are flying at flight level and how long to average out the winds for. Obviously we go for 1 minute sustained with all of these storms. You've got to bear that in mind as well, because sometimes the winds that you're looking at are 30-second winds or 1 second winds or just peak gusts. So you've got to be careful when you're looking at all of that Recon data. I don't know if the NHC missed any higher data or not. I've still not had the chance to go through all of the data either, but I'm sure they will be going through it diligently in the post-season analysis and will come up with a satisfactory answer. I sort of have faith in that, although then again, they've done things I've disagreed with in the past, and I guess that's how it goes. But nonetheless, this was an extremely powerful and, by the sounds of it, destructive storm. JJ, could you tell us a little bit more about what you're hearing on the ground? What did you see?
Well, for instance, I was opening up Instagram and I was looking up, and that's probably that's not the first place I would look, but I was seeing swells of up to 10 to 15 feet on the coast that were just washing away things in sight. I was seeing winds whipping around of at least hurricane force. A lot of roofs ripped off of buildings, a lot of damage to homes, a lot of destruction of property, and a lot of flash flooding. There was roads completely flooded. You couldn't see the bottom of it. It was like running rivers were just taken over. So definitely was not the sight to see.
Yeah.
I could actually post some. See if I can post some up on my MacBook right now. Let me see if I can post some up.
Just seeing a response there about the Recon peak. I still don't think Recon got 190-mile-an-hour winds. That's what I feel right now. I'll have to look back at everything, but from what I saw near the peak, I did not see that. And
Oh yeah,
on our satellite estimates, at least, never reached 190 miles per hour either. So I'm quite satisfied with 185, at least at this moment in time, pending other evidence, which I may see or may not see in the coming days. But either way, it's still an extremely powerful storm, and one of the top most powerful storms in Atlantic history, and potentially one of the, or well, it already is one of the, but potentially tied for the strongest, most intense hurricane landfall in the Atlantic basin, although I do have a little question mark over that. But having said that, it's at least second place after the Labor Day hurricane. But then again, I have question marks about the Labor Day hurricane as well, because some of their data. But there you go. It's a data minefield. But what the most people won't care. What is really to be cared about here is the impacts that this storm has wrought across this island nation, and where it's going next, and what it's doing, and the storm surge expectations. Around 13 feet was the estimate for Jamaica. We're still expecting 12 feet for the southern coast of Cuba, and obviously extremely heavy rainfall, which is still continuing. Recon's taking a while. I don't know when we will get that data. It might be a while yet.
Yeah. In the meantime, I did find a video on the Weather Channel of some of the damage reports. I shared my screen if you want to throw that up.
I'm sure it was quite something.
Mm-hmm.
Communities in Jamaica.
Oh my gosh. I didn't think we would have the audio.
Oh no, yeah, I forgot about that one.
So yeah, quite a lot of serious impacts there, as you can see. And very strong winds and heavy rainfall, flash flooding. Obviously the rate of the water movement, there you go, you see trees down as well. I'm not sure how much of that we can show for obvious reasons.
Oh yeah.
But obviously what you would expect from some of those viewpoints, and the thing is, JJ, from those will be the places that still have communications as well. So it would either have been before the worst part of the storm, near the landfall zone, or a location that didn't get the worst part of the storm. So there's going to be places yet that we're yet to see that will be much worse than that.
Yeah. So you could probably see that places further west, places further, like I said before, actually, places further west that were directly hit by the eye wall and the eye of the storm probably have seen a lot stronger devastation, probably a lot more apocalyptic, like, if that's a fair word to describe it, honestly.
I guess.
I mean, with the winds of that magnitude and for how long the storm was inching towards Jamaica, the rainfall totals, it's one of those things that you just can't describe.
Another interesting comment there, this storm reminded them of a very powerful Western Pacific typhoon. Did we get that impression as well? Near its peak, sorta, but no, because it was just really small. You don't really get that in the Western Pacific, but I tell you what, the biggest example of something like that in the Western Pacific is, I think JJ knows what I might say, Goni.
Yep. Back in 2020, it's actually a really good example. Of course, Goni was a very, very small storm, very, very tight core, but that core was explosive winds of damn near 200 miles an hour in that.
Yeah, really extraordinary typhoon. But again, that's just satellite estimates, and we're going to talk about that again. I mean, who knows what Recon would have seen in that storm? We will never know.
It's the debate of the century. Is recon worth it in typhoons? Will that change Will that change everything for typhoon tracking? Never know.
Well,
Unless
they
the
used to, didn't
DCW
they?
decides to change that.
Yeah, they used to.
Yep.
And not many people know this, but around 1990, the recon flights in the Atlantic, all recon was under threat of being cancelled. Recon very nearly ended in the Atlantic Ocean just before Hurricane Andrew.
Yep.
But here we are. We still have it today. And of course, it ended in the Western Pacific after during the 1987 season. And it's a shame we don't have it anymore. What we do have instead is the GFS models, which I'll be showing in a couple of minutes because it's not loaded properly. So I'm just going to have to go back and get it again. As we always do on the Tropical Weather Bulletin, whether it's live or not, we take a look at what the GFS is throwing out across the whole globe in the next 16 days. And I'll be walking you through all of that, including what they're forecasting for Hurricane Melissa, although it's a pretty cut and dry forecast, obviously with the NHC forecast. And all the models saying pretty much the same thing at this point for Melissa. It's become a very easy forecast from the beginning, where it was obviously an extremely difficult forecast. And the forecasters have done as well as they can during the course of this storm. I think they're going to be quite well commended after what happened, because it was so difficult to predict early on, and they weren't that bad, the forecasters. Okay, we are now finally able to show you what the GFS has in store for us over the next 16 days. Don't forget, disclaimer, this is just one model. Another disclaimer, if it's beyond 7 days, it's a bit crazy and is much less likely to actually happen. Another disclaimer, I can't show any other models on here because the software doesn't do them. That's the only reason why I only show the GFS on here. People think I'm a GFS fanboy when no, it's the only one that we can get the pretty graphics for. So that's the only reason. Although it does give you a decent idea globally, but so does the Euro. So do a couple of other models. And it's always wise. The wisest thing to do is to cross-check all of the models, all of the major global models, GFS, Euro, CMC, Icon, maybe one or two others, especially for formation chances, and what a potential future storm might do. Once the storm actually develops and we get a handle on it, some models are better than others, and obviously you've got the hurricane models on board by that point as well. Color scheme, if you haven't seen this view before, so the blue areas there, that's sort of getting up towards 25-30 miles per hour. The green is the start of the tropical storm force winds, so that's all gale force winds. And the yellow is the hurricane force winds, although the GFS doesn't do that good a job here because the storm is, of course, a major hurricane, so we should be seeing red in here as well, but we're not. So that's all the housekeeping done. So straight into a Cuban landfall, very close to Santiago de Cuba, I believe. Off it goes northeastwards. Where's landfall now? It actually isn't on Crooked Island. It's west. That's the southern tip of Long Island now, I think, that's got the landfall. Yep. Significant hurricane there, hitting one of those other islands as well. I think it's Rum Key, although it may not be. And continuing off towards the northeast, and GFS actually has a very brief major hurricane peak somewhere along here. I've lost it now. Oh, it's actually later on when it's nearing Bermuda. Again, I always struggle to find Bermuda on this map because of its relatively small size. Oh, it's there. Oh, this is not good then, according to the GFS model. Bermuda gets slammed nearly with those major hurricane force winds. Wow. Well, that would certainly be something and a half. So GFS has a major hurricane not landfall, but major hurricane impacts for Bermuda. Obviously not the first time that's happened, but quite late in the season for that. Then it gets absorbed to a massive extratropical system, Newfoundland. You know what? That's very close to a landfall in Newfoundland. Still hurricane force winds, although they're displaced to the east. And then what's left of this massive bulk extends across the whole Atlantic, whole North Atlantic. And I don't know, they all end up in different places there. Western, Northern Europe. That's Melissa exiting the stage. What else happens after Melissa, though, in the Atlantic? Is there anything? We're still watching a little area over here for potential subtropical development, but no real things going on. I think you did just see that as well. The GFS now wants another system to be developing somewhere near Puerto Rico in the first week of November. It actually develops a little bit further up after that. It's that's a precursor, but by the 3rd, that is potentially a brief tropical storm there, grazing the Bahamas and sweeping up northwards before getting sucked into another massive, huge extratropical system. Look at the size of that for the northeastern United States. Non-tropical, really sweeping up northeastwards. Quite a battering in store for the US Northeast in the next few days by the looks of things, JJ.
I'm not looking forward to that one.
And anything else in the super long range? No. Eastpac. There's Sonia. Now a remnant low because the convections all died a death. Anything else in the Eastern Pacific behind it? No. Ethan will be very disappointed. But it is pretty much curtains now for the Eastern Pacific. It does tend to shut off very abruptly at the end of October usually, although not always. Western Pacific, could this be a threat here then? This is the one, the 40% chance that we've put out. A system that's developing there and ends up just passing Yap. And then westwards, on towards the Philippines. Tropical storm landfall, interesting track where it does that curve. Landfall here, and that would be on the island of Leyte. And actually dies as it does so. So really not the typhoon you're looking for, typhoon watchers. However, after that, in the much longer range, but big caution on this, 8th of November, very far out, a big typhoon in size. In strength, not quite, probably a Category 2. Landfall in Luzon, and continues on. Oh, another one there at the very end as well. So maybe some late season action for the Western Pacific. North Indian Ocean, we've just had Tropical Storm... Gee, I've forgotten its name. Mantha. Tropical Storm Mantha.
There you go, Mantha.
Made landfall in Andhra Pradesh, India. Now moving inland. It's gone very quickly. This system over here as well, still, we're asking whether that's going to develop. Looks like the answer is going to be no on that one. GFS also throwing up a potential system near Myanmar on the 2nd or 3rd of November. That's not too far out. Briefly becoming a small tropical storm and dying almost as quickly as it formed there before it even gets to the Ganges River Delta in Bangladesh. In the longer range, nothing. Southern Indian Ocean, nothing here to begin with, but towards the end of the model run, very far out, a tropical storm that is out at sea, doesn't do anything. Australian region, we will be watching here in the future, but at the moment, nothing active. South Pacific is a similar story, so it actually looks like if the Westpac doesn't really get going, it's going to be a relatively quiet tropics after this. It is true that November is historically one of the quietest months of the year, but sometimes it can throw up some massive storms in that month, just like in October. Well, one such massive storm, of course, being Melissa. Oh, we didn't show the rainfall expectations. Hold on a second. Let's just go back to rainfall for the next 7 days from Melissa. And the rainfall estimates have gradually climbing down. For Jamaica, we're expecting additional 5 or 6 inches there along the northern side of the island. That's 150 millimeters. So for areas of Cuba, interestingly, mainly along the western side of this storm, looks like that's getting the heaviest rainfall, getting up towards 14 inches to 350 millimeters. For parts of the Bahamas, now looking at Long Island, maybe 300 millimeters, 12 inches. And for Bermuda, wherever it's gone again, we could be looking at maybe 4 or 5 inches there for Bermuda. Whilst we are looking at rainfall, let's just look across the rest of this area. Monsoonal rainfall is going to cause massive amounts over central and northern Vietnam. And looking around the Philippines, this here is probably from that system that we're tracking. 24 inches of rain offshore. On land in the northern part of Surigao, 15 inches, getting up towards 400 millimeters of rain. And also, big rainmaker being that system that eventually looks like it won't form near Gujarat, also producing maybe 20 inches just about along that very peripheral coastline. 500 millimeters. Wow. If you've just joined us on this tropical weather bulletin, Hurricane Melissa is now a Category 3 on the Saffir Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale, according to the National Hurricane Center's latest advisory, down to 125 miles per hour. Estimated central pressure now into the 950s. NHC went with 952. We went a little bit higher at 955. We will have another recon pass shortly. We're waiting for more info, although it's actually not shortly, really. They've still got a little way to go. Where are they? Yeah, they're just reaching Haiti. So until they get into the eye, it's still going to be another over half an hour before they get more info. So unfortunately, we won't have a recon flight during the course of this tropical weather bulletin tonight. It's going to happen after we finish. So let's see if we can take some more comments and questions right now. Start your message with Force 13 all in text. The persistent postler, you've been asking a few. How was Melissa able to avoid regular eyewall replacement cycles for so long? I think it's just a case of the eyewall that it did have was so strong, so potent, resistant, that the only things that really happened were merger eyewall replacement cycles, which were barely noticeable, and no proper eyewall replacement cycles. There was never a break in the eyewall. There really weren't any problems with it at all. Probably helped due to the extremely good conditions underneath the storm, and also because of its rather small size. I think that will have helped it a fair bit as well. Cyclonism, it didn't light up for me for some reason, but what do we think the chances are for the storm to re-strengthen on its approach to Cuba, perhaps back to Category 4 status? I think that is possible. Don't know yet. Broly Meng had a little comeback on the recon question about why they ended it in the West Pacific. Was it because of funding? Basically, yes, and they used a cop-out excuse back in 1987 that they said the satellites and computer data are now good enough for us to not need recon anymore, was effectively what it said. But if you look into the financials of the US Navy, etc., it was a financial decision why they ended recon over there back in the late 80s and nearly ended it in the Atlantic in the early 90s. So that's what happened there. A Moment of Lovely reckons it was one of the best eyewalls they remember from the past 5 years. It was pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you think about it?
I mean, it was honestly one of the most impressive eyewalls to track from the moment it became a Category 4. We saw those cloud tops that kind of held firm in that minus 80 range for hours at a time, and the second they would taper back down, you would think the storm's weakening, they would blow right back up.
Look at those latest frames.
And that, oh wow, that eye is really popping right back out.
Oh my god, look at what the appearance is going to look at when that thing pops out again. Jeez.
Oh wow. A little messy.
Don't like the look of that. Honey Bear says, why do we think the 2 recon flights this morning left after just 1 pass? Do you think they missed further intensification? I still don't know about that. I still have a little hunch that the storm was actually stronger before they entered. Can't confirm that, but I don't think it got any stronger after they left. Why did they not return? I think it was simply a lack of time that the storm was getting too close to land. They certainly couldn't fly northeast because the landmass was there, and they don't like flying too close to the coast when the hurricane is here because of the risk of flying debris and other things that could go wrong, or if the plane had an issue that they're close to land, that they certainly wouldn't fly over land, because then they may have to potentially ditch on land, and that would be pretty potentially catastrophic in itself. So they ditched it straight away. They thought that the storm would keep moving quickly until landfall, and then the stupid thing stalled for another hour or two, didn't it? I mean, they could have got in another pass, but we weren't to know that.
I mean, the storm's slow-moving track was really against Recon's benefit, especially towards the end there. That storm was crawling its way towards landfall. We thought that landfall was going to be in the daybreak of Tuesday. It didn't happen until just around afternoon. And I understand that, especially with Jamaica's mountainous terrain. You don't want to have Recon flying through that, especially flying through the eye wall of that type of storm. You don't want flying debris. That could really cause some serious issues. But even then, I feel like there was a window of opportunity to get one or two more flights in, just to really see what that storm's making landfall at.
Eye temperature back to about minus 45 degrees Celsius at this point. It's on its way back, but let's not forget here, guys, only 5 hours. I don't see it strengthening that much, even if it does look good. We had Recon with actual evidence earlier that was struggling to get major hurricane force winds. That was just before we went live this hour.
Yep.
The next Recon will be on the way in. I doubt they're going to get too much higher, but it wouldn't surprise me if this storm got to mid-range Category 4 before landfall, given what it can do, Melissa. But Cat 5, nah. High in Cat 4, I don't think so. Even if it does look like it's about to do something really terrible on this satellite imagery.
It's worst case scenario, the storm reaches 145 at landfall, which I don't even think is possible.
Oh, I think it's possible.
I mean, well, to be fair, the eye is clearing out. I'm looking at visible right now. That eye is really clearing out.
Yeah.
Relatively fast.
Absolutely.
Especially for that landed direction.
Big question will be, what happens to those cloud tops when the eye does pop out? If they stay at those levels, because what usually happens, you can often get eyes that pop out, raggedy eyes, and the cloud tops are really start to struggle, and they're in just about getting the minus 70s. But if they do stay in the minus 80s like they are there on that western side and on the east at the end, then we could be dealing with something big still. And it still looks really small. If anything, it feels like the core of this storm has gotten even smaller. The eye has got bigger.
I feel like,
and the rest of it's got even smaller.
The eye definitely has gotten smaller, but that outer ring of intense thunderstorms has definitely shrunk quite a big margin. It's almost small enough to fit in between the gap of Jamaica and Cuba.
Oh.
Wait, that's tiny. I think it was larger before it made landfall.
Yeah.
You usually see the reverse effect where storms make a landfall and then the wind field expands and the cloud that sphere of influence expands, but it's almost like the storm is kind of squeezing in on itself.
It's only got a very small window though. Land interaction eventually. Wind shear is probably trying to get at it again now as well. Will the storm be able to fight off all of that and strengthen back to Category 4 status? It is looking like it's making a sure go of it, and we may be called in to do another live event in the morning hours tomorrow. I think we probably will, to be honest. So I think that's when you'll next be seeing us. We're finishing up this tropical weather bulletin now. We're going to do on this day in a second, and then we're going to redirect you back to the automated stream, which is also running at this point, showing you the latest imagery of the storm in real time 24/7. And sometimes it might just be nice for you to just chill there and talk to other people in the chat, or chill to the music and not have to hear our voices. But That's there for anyone, even when we're doing these streams. For now, I'd like to thank JJ and earlier on Jack for your input during this hour. Let's take a look at what happened on this day. And we're going back to last year. Not very far to go. And it was Typhoon Kongray, which was peaking as a Category 5 towards the end of that day, October 29th, 2024. The storm would then go on to affect the northern Philippines and Taiwan, making landfall in Taiwan in the end. A very powerful storm, very large storm, and to be honest, probably one of the most ragged Category 5s I've seen too. An enormous eye. That was last year on this day. Back to this year, still at 89 storms around the world, not too far from the average now for the whole year. Nestor is next in the Atlantic, Tico in the Eastern Pacific, and the next name in the Central Pacific is Lala. Moving on to the Western Pacific, the next name is still Kalmegi. In the North Indian Ocean, it's now Senyar. So, still 89 storms as mentioned. I did already mention that part. Well, it looks like we're going to be seeing more coverage on Melissa as we get into Wednesday. In the Australian region, the next name is Fina. Southwest Indian Ocean, Dudsai, no sign of those yet. And in the South Pacific, it will be Ermil. That's all from us. We'll see you again soon. Hope things are going as well as they can down in Jamaica if you're watching us from there. But I've talked over the end of the stream. I don't usually do that. Well, we'll be back with more live coverage. We will continue to cover Melissa. There's still plenty of land masses ahead of the storm, and we'll be there for it.